UFO Channel.
The first well-known UFO sighting happened in 1947, except that it was not the first one, but to keep this video simple, let's say it was the first famous case in the United States. Aviator and businessman Kenneth Arnold was piloting his small Cali Air A2 airplane. With weather conditions allowing for maximum visibility, Arnold decided to make a brief detour to Mount Rainier to see if he could spot a marine transport that had recently crashed, so he could claim the reward of $5,000. As Arnold approached the mountain, he spotted a series of bright flashes in the distance, flying in a long chain. The group of 9 objects appeared to be other aircraft, but the speed at which they were moving around the mountain was too fast, faster than any aircraft known to man. Looking to identify them by the shape, he took a closer look and realized they had no tail, and were a convex shape. He said they moved like saucers skipping on water. In the newspaper report that followed, it was mistakenly stated that the objects were saucer-shaped, hence the term flying saucer. Arnold estimated these UFOs were going at a speed of about 1,200 miles an hour, roughly 1,900 kilometers per hour. Kenneth Arnold was a respected pilot and business owner, with over 9,000 hours of flight experience. During July of the same year that Arnold saw the flying objects, a rancher came across a mysterious 200-yard-long wreckage near an Army airfield in Roswell, New Mexico. According to initial information provided to the Roswell Daily Record by the Roswell Army Airfield, the startling headlines claimed that the military had recovered a flying saucer from a nearby ranch. Overnight, the story changed from a flying saucer to a weather balloon, and over the ensuing years, that explanation morphed into a military high-altitude surveillance program. It's been more than 75 years, and just recently the US government started taking seriously and officially more recent sightings. Or at least that's what they want the public to believe. After more than 70 years of denying or ignoring these facts, now they are releasing some of the footage, like the famous UFO videos taken by the US Navy pilots. And they have also changed the name to UAP, which now stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. There are thousands of stories out there of regular people that have experienced seeing or even being in contact with beings originating from other worlds. Some of them are not regular people, but expert pilots, skeptics, scientists, and even former government officials with a lifetime of credible reputation. Over the years, ufologists have collected a staggering amount of evidence. Even governments have declassified documents with weird accounts, result of paranormal projects and UFO investigations. In this video, we're not going to talk about what and why the US government is doing that. There are several theories about it, but we are here to talk about the actual technologies that could be involved in all this. We have explored less than 5% of our own oceans, and know less than a quarter of the species that live there. We don't know much about our own galaxy, and we are just trying to understand how to apply quantum physics. Most scientists state things all the time based on scientific evidence or even theories, but sometimes our science is limited to the tools we have and the understanding and ideas we have. Some won't let go of old belief systems. Just like a religion, science can also become a dogma. For instance, we still believe that everything is made out of particles and not waves at a quantum level. Take the example of galaxies. It wasn't until 1923 that Edwin Hubble measured the distance of the so-called nebulae and discovered that these were in fact other galaxies, thus making the entire scientific community agree on the existence of other galaxies. Remember that in 1923 we already had airplanes. But we didn't know that other galaxies existed outside of our own. Some of our scientists still don't agree with new discoveries and evidence, especially when this new evidence implies that other old ideas we have are fundamentally wrong. And sure, there are wrong facts still taught in schools and universities around the world. I'll quote physicist Michio Kaku, quote, "After all, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. How old is science? is 300 years old." End quote. One of the most mysterious and controversial topics in our current society is the existence of other civilizations like us on other planets. Could this be possible? Specifically, advanced civilizations that can travel to other planets like ours and suddenly appear in our skies as an unidentified flying object, which can have a weird shape, fly in strange patterns and high speeds not achievable with man-made machines, and even pop in and out of existence. To see how possible this could be, let's consider the size of our galaxy. From one edge to another, it will take about 52,000 light years to cross the Milky Way, that is traveling from one side to another at the speed of light. And the Milky Way might contain about 100 billion planets and stars. We don't even know for certain how many, but it is an approximate. And that's only one galaxy. To understand and visualize how big 1 billion is, imagine a grain of sand and multiply it by 1 billion. If we pack all these grains of sand, it will occupy roughly 19 cubic meters. Now multiply that by 100, and that way you can now visualize how much 100 billion is, representing all the planets and stars of the Milky Way with each grain of sand. Let's take this a bit further. How many galaxies are there? Well, scientists estimate there can be from 100 to 200 billion galaxies in the observable universe alone. To imagine this, just think about the amount of sand from the previous example, multiplied by 2, and this time each grain of sand is not representing a planet or star, but an entire galaxy. Surely this beautiful tiny blue dot is not the only place where advanced life exists, if we can consider ourselves advanced. That is simply impossible. Life is the norm in the universe, not what we have been told, that we are alone and we are an accident of the universe somehow. In 2018, a new documentary about UFOs came out. It is called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. This is a story I've heard before. This guy has been telling his story to the public since 1989. He claims to have examined an alien craft that ran on an antimatter reactor powered by element 115. In the documentary, at about 1 hour and 5 minutes, he makes a drawing and explains how this craft works, because he was actually involved in dismantling one craft to reverse engineer it. But he stated that there are many things we are not able to understand yet, specifically about the element 115, and the process one of the components had to undergo to be manufactured, which is an important part of the flying saucer. We also don't understand the actual physics involved in the manipulation of gravity. He said that the projects were compartmentalized, so he or anyone couldn't have all the information needed to understand the whole workings of the craft. The reason he went public is because the technology he saw can change the world for the better, but it has been hidden to the public for many decades. If today we had anti-gravity technology, we wouldn't need to use any kind of fossil fuel for transportation. Electricity would be very cheap or even free. You could have an antimatter generator or anti-gravity generator at home. It would be just like buying another appliance. And if the technology was perfected further, you could take a short duration flight of only minutes to any destination on Earth. The part that gets me thinking about a flying saucer or any other extraterrestrial craft is, how does a machine like this work? And after compiling a lot of information from different sources, including Bob's, this is roughly how a flying saucer might work, taking into consideration that it is only one of the many different types of technologies out there, because other civilizations might use different kinds of propulsion systems, they might use different craft shapes, and so on. This is roughly the way a flying disc would look from outside. We're not exactly sure about the material it is made out of, but it is most likely to be a metallic quasi-crystal material. Quasi-crystals alloys have interesting characteristics that help with anti-gravity, but that alone won't have the desired propulsion and control over the craft. It needs some other way to move and control its direction. For that, this model has 3 gravity emitters. These can oscillate in different directions to maneuver the craft. On top of each of them, there is a gravity amplifier. In this way, anti-gravitational waves, also called out-of-phase gravitational waves, are produced in the direction the gravity emitter is pointing to. The craft also has some kind of antenna at the top where gravity waves are also emitted to enclose the whole craft into an isolated gravitational field, forming a toroidal shape, although Bob Lazar draws more like a heart shape. Also at the top of the craft, we can find some kind of navigation sensors. In this type of craft we cannot find any wiring, seams, welding spots, bolts, nuts or rivets of any kind. It is unknown the way this is possible, and how such a machine is manufactured. Some of the materials used in this craft are not usually found nearby in our solar system, but they could be synthesized with special machines also not available yet for humans, at least not available for the 99.9% of the population. There's no point on speculating how the energy and gravitational waves are generated, since it is not even understood by our own scientists. It goes beyond our normal capacity of understanding. But as mentioned by Bob Lazar, it uses antimatter. The thing with antimatter is that it's extremely delicate and dangerous to manipulate. To hold antimatter, a special gravitational container is needed. The container will make the antimatter inside it levitate without touching the walls. An extremely small amount of antimatter and matter then is introduced into the reactor, where a large quantity of energy is generated to power the craft. The amount of energy released by antimatter, the size of a grain of rice when it touches regular matter, would be enough to blow up an entire neighborhood. This is only one type of craft, out of the hundreds, if not thousands of types that can be found from civilizations originating in our own galaxy alone. They can have different shapes, be different sizes and use different technologies. Many of them don't need to be aerodynamic, forget about that. At this level of technology, the aircraft generates its own electromagnetic and gravitational fields around it. This means that they can also manipulate time and space, which implies traveling to what we perceive as the past and the future, as well as modifying space itself. Some of the craft might look small from the outside, but in the inside they can accommodate a large amount of volume. Naturally, for many people this information would be completely difficult or even impossible to believe. And this will continue to happen as long as the information is not presented in the mainstream media and the governments stop at least some part of this cover-up. You can take this as an entertaining sci-fi video or an entertaining video that talks about a real possibility. But whatever it is you believe, I still thank you for watching this video. For those of you who want to go deep down the rabbit hole, consider checking out our new YouTube channel, which will show you more of these topics. I'll see you next time.
If you would like to continue to grow your mind, please push the subscribe button.